The U.S. sent fighter jets through Taiwan Strait to intercept Chinese jets. China has responded to an unusual flight by the U.S. transport aircraft by sending its combat jets into Taiwan's airspace. Taiwan says it had to forcibly remove them. Communist China considers Taiwan its sovereign territory. Taiwan, never conquered during the 1949 Cultural Revolution, does not. Chairman for Life Xi Jinping, however, has repeatedly asserted his intention to bring the island under Beijing's rule by any means necessary. So when the U.S. Navy sent a transport aircraft down the west coast of the democratically governed island this week, Beijing took insult. It responded by sending a flight of Russian-designed Su-30 flanker interdiction fighters into Taiwanese airspace. The U.S. warplane's rare flight over Taiwan showed the increasing collaboration between the U.S. military and Taiwan secessionists. And the Chinese mainland's fighter jet sorties and approaches sent them a powerful warning, and demonstrated how much the People's Liberation Army was determined and prepared for war. Chinese Communist Party mouthpiece The Global Times declared the following day: Taiwan's Ministry of Defense says the Chinese fighters were given verbal warnings before its own built F-16 Viper fighters drove away the intruders. The trigger for the confrontation was the presence of a U.S. Navy C-40A Clipper transport aircraft, a militarized version of the commercial Boeing 737 passenger jet. It had flown an approved, though unusual, flight path over Taiwan's airspace on its way to Southeast Asia from the significant US base at Okinawa. The flight was always going to upset Beijing. The People's Liberation Army's fighter jet sorties and approaches to Taiwan is likely a counter to the provocative move by the U.S. military aircraft. Chinese Communist Party military spokesman Song Hongbing told the Global Times. This can also be seen as a de facto joint military drill, indicating the U.S. could lend Taiwan support in a war and give Taiwan secessionists courage to fight the mainland. Song said the Chinese incursion was deliberate. This time they flew to the southwestern airspace of the island, which showed the determination and capability of the People's Liberation, and this will become more frequent and routine. That the U.S. Navy flight was an overt signal of support for Taiwan is likely, especially given China's recent major military exercises close to its borders. The new aircraft carrier Shandong has been testing its weapon systems to the southeast of the island, in what international observers say has been a clear signal to Taipei. Taiwan has repeatedly complained in recent months that China has been stepping up military activity in its vicinity. It sees this as a deliberate attempt to menace the newly elected democratic government of President Tsai Ing-wen. Beijing insists such exercises are nothing unusual, and that they are happening in its own territory anyway. But there is no denying China is rattling sabers in its relationship with Taipei. Last month, senior People's Liberation Army spokesman Wu Jin told the Chinese Communist Party Assembly that Taiwan is an inalienable part of China, and that the Taiwan question is China's internal affair, and China will not accept any foreign interference. The People's Liberation Army has the firm will, full confidence and enough capability to thwart any kind of secessionist attempt by foreign forces, and will take any necessary measures to safeguard national sovereignty and territorial integrity, and maintain peace and stability across the Taiwan Straits. The United States has stepped up its naval presence in the vicinity of Taiwan and the South China Sea in recent months. It sent a destroyer, the USS Russell, through the Taiwan Straits last Thursday. This was the 7th transit of the disputed waterway so far this year. Washington has adopted an increasingly overt attitude to the international status of the East and South China Sea, as well as the Taiwan Strait. It insists it has no opinion over who owns what islands or reefs. Only that this be negotiated and administered under the United Nations laws of the sea. Specifically, that means the freedom of navigation of commercial and military vessels through international waters. The U.S. ambassador to the United Nations has this week upped the ante. He rejected Beijing's assertion that it has the right to expel Malaysian resource exploration ships from the South China Sea. The United States rejects these maritime claims as inconsistent with international law. As reflected in the 1982 Law of the Sea Convention, Ambassador Kelly Craft wrote in a diplomatic submission. Malaysia is seeking approval from the United Nations to expand the definition of its continental shelf in its favor. Beijing is continuing to ignore a 2016 ruling by the International Permanent Court of Arbitration, which rejected its claims to the entire South China Sea as unfounded. A tense three-way standoff between Chinese, Vietnamese and Malaysian forces dragged out over several months earlier this year. At the heart of the dispute was a Malaysian survey platform. The Australian frigate HMAS Parramatta joined forces with the USS America stealth fighter carrier, the cruiser USS Bunker Hill and the destroyer USS Barry in April for a freedom of navigation demonstration. It was in response to Chinese warship maneuvers surrounding the Malaysian operation.